Hi everyone. As you can see, my brake calipers are pretty filthy. They stand out like a sore thumb against the rest of my car. So I decided to clean them up and paint them fully in a nice gloss black to match both my car paint and the alloy wheels. So in this video, I'll show you my process of painting both the brake calipers and the rotors. I started with the front brakes. After raising the car and removing the wheels, I could get at the brakes. To cut the flow of brake fluid, I used a small G-clamp to clamp down on the brake line lightly. This really isn't the best way to do it, but it works. Then I went about removing the front calipers from the car. A pretty simple process. I ended up using a large screwdriver to help get the caliper off. It was pretty tight. Then I removed the caliper from the brake line. And unbolted the caliper carrier. This was pretty hard to get off since it probably hasn't been removed before. Before painting the rotor, I used a wire brush attachment on my drill to remove any rust, dirt and grime. As you can see, this cleaned the rotor up really well. I could even see the original engraved part number. Next, I lightly sanded the rotor with some 240 grit sandpaper. Then used some brake cleaner to remove any sanding and wire brush debris. Finally, I put some isopropyl alcohol on some paper towel and wiped the rotor down. This removes any final contaminants before I started painting. Then I covered the disc with masking tape to prevent any paint overspray. So here is the caliper paint I used. Any brand works well, these were just on special at my local car shop. For the painting itself, I did a light coat first, letting it dry for 10 minutes. Then I did another light coat, leaving it for 10 minutes again, then followed with a final thicker coat. Then I went about cleaning the caliper itself. I started out using a wire brush, then quickly moved to the brush attachment on the drill, since it's just so much easier. I spent quite a long time with the drill, getting into every nook and cranny I could find. 28 years of road dust and rust is certainly good to remove. However, I'd recommend wearing a mask when doing this, since the dust gets everywhere and you really don't want to breathe it. As always with painting, the longer you spend on preparation, the better your results will be. I also had to be careful around the rubber pieces on the caliper when using the drill. So here is the result from the drill. Looks so much better already. Similar to the rotors, I used 240 grit sandpaper to get at any areas I missed, and also to remove any harsh surface left by the drill. I used the drill again along with the thin wire brush to clean up the caliper carrier, then went over it with sandpaper. Finally, I repeated this again for the small clip piece. I then sprayed everything down with brake cleaner and used the isopropyl alcohol again with a paper towel to give things a final clean. Before painting, it's also important to tape over all the rubber pieces on the caliper, including the whole piston assembly, the bleeding nipple and the brake fluid hose screw. For the calipers, I decided to use some high temperature primer to help the black paint stick. First, I did a fairly light coat on the 3 pieces. Followed by a second medium coat after leaving it to dry for 10 minutes. Then I let this dry for about an hour before flipping the 3 pieces over carefully. I then did 2 coats of primer on this side as well. Now it's time for the black paint. Again, I did 2 light coats followed by a medium coat, letting the paint dry for 10 minutes between each coat. This process gives a very deep black finish, which looks fantastic. While I was waiting for the black paint to dry, I went ahead and painted the other front brake caliper with primer. After an hour, I carefully turned the first caliper over and painted the other side with 3 coats, 2 light and 1 medium. Then I also painted the other caliper black as well. Finally, I used some clear coat. This isn't a requirement, but I wanted to protect my nice black finish to keep it glossy for a long time. However, I made a stupid mistake and sprayed the clear coat during very humid weather. This causes the paint to become hazy, and as you can see, it doesn't go away even after drying. I couldn't afford to sand back and repaint the front calipers, so I just left them as is, hoping for the best. After everything was dry, I removed any masking tape and reassembled the front calipers, using some grease to lubricate the slides. Attaching the calipers back onto the rotor is the same as removing them. I was just more careful now to avoid removing any fresh paint. As you can see, Compared with the Rotors, the clear coat made quite a difference to the shade of black that I was left with. However, after replacing the wheels, the hazed black didn't stand out as much as I thought, as the wheels themselves aren't actually a super deep gloss black. So with the front calipers done, I moved to the rear. I had to disconnect the dampers first in order to remove the rear calipers. Other than that, the process for cleaning and painting was exactly the same as the front calipers and rotors. The rear calipers, being smaller and also less dirty, were a lot easier to clean than the front. This time I painted both the rear calipers at the same time. First with a primer, and then with the gloss black. After making sure it was a less humid day, within the requirements on the back of the paint can, I attempted using the clear coat again. As you can see, it worked perfectly this time. It made the black look absolutely stunning. So here is the final result. I'm very happy with it. The calipers blend in with the rest of the car, they look fantastic, and they're more protected from rust. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider checking out my other videos and subscribing. I really appreciate it. See you next time.